Bienvenidos una vez más a su programa Hablemos de Real Estate con Carlos Amaya. Tenemos el episodio en inglés. Vamos a hacer el transfer en este momento. So, thank you very much for being here with us. We have a special guest today. We have someone that has a lot of experience, someone that is going to tell us in terms of like how he's doing his investment in real estate, and especially what he foresee moving forward in terms of what's going on in the market right now. So stick with us. We're going to come back in a few seconds. We're going to have a lot of questions for our guest for today. Bye. En Hablemos de Real Estate con Carlos Amaya creemos que la familia es la base de la sociedad. Por eso, nuestra misión es proveer información y herramientas a la comunidad latina de cómo lograr la libertad financiera a través de bienes raíces. So, it's super special for me to have this guest today. It's a good friend, Tim Vitale. I hope I didn't chop the name.
No, you got it, man.
Okay, Tim, and thank you for being here. It's super special to have you. And thank you for taking time. I know you're super busy. You have some personal situation right now that's taking a lot of your time, and professional as well. So let's go straight to the point. So, can you tell us a little more in terms of like how you started the business, where you are located right now? And then we can just go in deep and your business, investment strategy and everything that you do.
Sure. Yeah. So I grew up in Bridgeport, Connecticut. And most of my family had been in real estate in some way, shape, or form. My family owns like a bunch of like smaller multifamily properties up there, like residential multifamily, and some mixed use buildings as well. So I was like kind of comfortable with the concept. And it's pretty much, how my family made money up in Connecticut. They ran some stores out of the buildings, and then they owned the buildings and rented them out later on. And it just kind of like naturally progressed into that. So I had always been around it in some way, shape, or form. I had went away to college and got a job working in finance and accounting. And after a while, I wanted to figure out how was I going to start making more money, because I wasn't making what I wanted to make. And started getting into real estate late 2018, early 2019. And that's kind of like when I read the Rich Dad, Poor Dad book. And, everyone's catalyst. Everyone says that, right? But that's, it was like early 2019, late 2018 for me when I read that. I actually listened to it on audiobook, to be honest with you. And, so that's kind of where I started. And then it's, started educating myself and learning about learning about real estate in general. Listen to basically every Bigger Pockets podcast episode. I was waking up at 5 o'clock in the morning, reading books and educating myself. And then I do my day job. And then I, go to like real estate networking events at nighttime and really made a huge life shift at that point in order to kind of go down a new industry and a new path. So I bought my first property. It was a single family condo. And that was November 2019. And I paid $76,000 for that. Ended up paying cash for it. I took out 3 loans. I did a personal loan. I took a loan against my 401k, and then I took a loan from my dad. And then I paid cash for it, and I refinanced all the lenders out a couple months later. And that's ultimately how I found out about multifamily. Was on the appraisal, there was 2 numbers, and one number was the income-based approach, and the other one was the comp-based approach. And the comp-based approach was lower than the income-based approach. And I said, well, why can't we use that number? This is an investment property for me. It makes money. It makes sense. And they're like, no, Tim, only 5-unit properties and up use the income-based approach. So that's when I had to figure out, I was like, wait a second, like, how do I get into that box then? Because income makes sense to me being in the finance world. And, that's when I read the blue book on the shelf there, Multifamily Millions by David Lindell, kind of opened up my eyes to commercial real estate. And it was basically at that point I cut the cord and I never went into single family stuff again. I stopped going to those meetups. I stopped associating myself with people that were single family fix and flippers and burr investors and all that kind of stuff. And I started going to all the commercial real estate meetups and becoming friends and building relationships with people that were in that space, because that's ultimately what I wanted to do.
Definitely. So Bridgeport, Connecticut, I know the area really, really well. We live in Westchester County, New Rochelle, and White Plains for a long time. We used to go to Sanford, and we do have friends there. So you were born there. Your family was in real estate, so you were born into the industry, and that happens. I have a lot of guests here that had the same situation, and
Well, but you know what's funny is like what you're saying is true. Yeah, I was born into a real estate family, but they didn't know how to do real estate the way that we know how to do real estate now. So they told me go to school, get a good job, work for the man, get a corporate career, work up the corporate ladder. Like I did all of those things, yet I came back to real estate because I started doing the books for my family. I was like, look how much money you guys are making doing nothing. And I was like, like it was my grandmother, and I was like, Grandma, you're sitting in your chair doing nothing all day, making a lot of money, doing their not. Why are you telling me to go work, for somebody else and build somebody else as well when I could be buying real estate? Why don't you teach me how to buy real estate? And they're like, oh, we
and
don't
they
know. We've always owned it. We've always just owned these properties. We've never.
And I love that you mentioned that, because you should usually hear like professional, like attorneys, doctors, even like sport figures. They don't want the kids to go through that because they already know the hassle and these obstacles. But even though the outcome is great in terms of like, the financial freedom and be able to have the passive income. So you went to school to learn. To what did you went to school for?
I went to a school for accounting and finance.
Accounting and finance. It's funny you said that because my daughter was going through that. I mean, still right now she's taking a gap year, and I know she's listening to us. So you went through, and what did you decide the career, and how do you feel when you start working after you graduated from school?
So I had an internship at Sikorsky Aircraft in Stratford, Connecticut. That's where they build all the helicopters for the military, and it was an accounting internship because me and this other girl, we were the top two in our class, and for math, right? We were top two math class, and they were like, "Hey, we got an internship opportunity, making $16 an hour. Do you want to do it?" And I was 16 years old when the minimum wage was like $7, and I was like, "Hell yeah, I'm going to do that." Um, and then I found I was good at it. Like it made sense to me. I'm not very good with kind of the gray area stuff. I don't really have too much of a creative side. I'm very kind of black and white, like it is what it is, and that's it, right? And that kind of works for me with accounting because there's only really one. I mean, you can kind of stretch it, but there really is only one right answer. Debits and credits. That's it, right? At the end of the day. So when I graduated, I did some like full charge bookkeeping where I was like doing the books for a lot of small businesses. That really taught me how the balance sheet and the income statement work together. And then when I left that job, I took a job in Manhattan working for an insurance company on Wall Street, and that's when I really learned like kind of big boy accounting and finance and general ledger reporting and all that kind of stuff, right? And I was just, man, I was good at it, like because it just makes sense. It's like, I don't know, people kind of get stuck in the weeds of a lot of things like analysis paralysis, and like it just doesn't really happen for me. I just kind of make a decision and then I go with it, and then if I got to make another decision, I go with that one. And I don't sit here and kind of dwaddle or waffle over what is the best decision that's going to make me the most amount of money. What is the absolute perfect decision is never going to exist. So you just have to say, does this align with my goals or my vision? Yes or no. If yes, do it. If no, don't do it. And then when you come to the next obstacle, do it again. Like figure out what's my next choice that I'm going to have to make. So it's really good at it. I enjoyed it. And then those skill sets really have transferred over from my professional W-2 corporate life into my entrepreneurial, real
And
estate.
and I would love to hear about that, but let's continue with that. So you were working in the city in Manhattan. Were you commuting? You moved to the city. How was the process, and when did you decide? You know what, this is it. No more, no more.
So I,
To
I lived on the Upper East Side, 75th and First. And then I lived in Long Island City, Queens for a year. So I was in Manhattan for 2 years. And
okay,
then I moved to Charlotte to work remotely from Charlotte because I just didn't like living in New York City anymore. And I ended up working for that same company for another 6.5 years. So then, I started as an entry level person and I worked my up, from entry level to senior to manager to assistant vice president. That whole process took like 8.5 years.
working from home.
I wasn't working from home. I was working from like a satellite office.
Okay,
So it was a big corporation and they had a lot of sister companies. And I just sat at a desk at one of the sister companies' offices. I didn't really work from home,
okay,
but everybody that I worked with and associated with was either in New York, Houston, or London.
okay. So how come? So what made you decide to come to Charlotte? Although this is
So I went to school. I live in Wilmington, North Carolina now, and I went to school here, and that's where I met my now wife. And I followed her up to Manhattan. That's how I got that job, because I would have never looked for a job there if it wasn't for her. And then when she was over living in the city, I was like, cool, I'm ready to leave. I never wanted to be here in the first place. So her family, she grew up in Charlotte, and when we made a decision to move to Charlotte, I was like, well, actually, this is kind of the best thing for us. I was like, I work in finance and accounting, and Charlotte's the #2 financial capital of the country. And her family lived in Charlotte. I was like, well, this just works. We'll just move back to Charlotte, and whatever happens, happens. And ended up working for that company for another 6.5 years.
Okay, so everything was great. It was like the American dream. You went to school, you graduated, you have your girlfriend become your wife, and you live in a beautiful city. So what happened next?
I got promoted to assistant VP, and I got a 3% raise. And I said to my boss, when do like when do the life changing, when do I start making life changing money? Like, when do the 50% and 100% raises come? Like, you see like the Wolf of Wall Street, and you're like, when do I start making that kind of money? And my boss laughed, and she goes, no, that doesn't really happen. And I went from making like $99,000 a year to 103. And I was like, wait a second. Like, I drank this Kool-Aid that as soon as I get to the VP level, I'm going to make life-changing money. And my boss's response was, well, that doesn't really happen, but your life insurance policy tripled because you're an officer of the company now. And I was like, great. That only helps me if I'm dead, and really only
Yes.
helps my wife. So that's when I was like, wait a second, I got to find something else to do. And that was late 2018. I got that promotion. To early 2019, I was looking for other avenues, and that was real estate. So then I was still working my day job, but I was also doing the real estate stuff from early in 2019 until I quit my job in September of 2021, the end of September.
Okay, so 2018, you were doing the 5 a.m. I used to do the same 5 a.m.
I
stuff.
don't do that anymore.
Before.
Yeah.
Used to listen to bigger podcasts when George Turkin was there. Was a couple years before that, before you used to listen to, and I decided I just want to do a small multifamilies because I wanted the cash flow. In your case, you still listen to bigger podcasts. Initially, you get overloaded information, so many different way to invest, so many markets, so many strategies. Which one did you pick, and which one did you go to? You already mentioned some of it, but so which one was the first one, and how did it go?
Oh, I was going to be the best Burr investor ever, right? I mean, that was the whole point of buying that place cash and then refinancing it 6 months later, right? I was like, I was going to pull all my money out, but so I
They,
kind of
they,
breezed
they,
over it.
they,
But what happened
they
in that appraisal story was it appraised for what I paid for it. And I was like, wait a second, like I did renovations on this. Like when I bought it, it was a 2.1. It's a 3.1.5 now, and you just appraised it at what I paid for it. And they were like, well, there's no other comps, but it was leased. So they looked at the income and the lease and all that. And that's how they came up with the income based approach. And that's when all the gears started clicking. So I had done one single family residential deal. And then I didn't do any deals from November 2019. I bought that condo. And then August 2021, I bought my first apartment complex. It took me 2 years basically to kind of get to the point where I could buy an apartment complex. It was a 92 unit apartment complex in Georgia.
and I know investors that have been doing this for like decades.
Forever. Yeah, it was like the best. I'm
Never,
gonna be the best thing ever. But when I
never
bought this place, I was making like $100 a month. And I was like, oh my God, like I can't even feel this. It's like I just worked from January when I started to figure this out until November, which 11 months, right? To make $100 a month. I was like, holy crap, I'm never gonna get out of my job. I was like, this is gonna take forever. So
really.
that's why I started looking at, bigger deals, and that's how that
So
kind of
so how
snowballed.
was the transition? Because I was gonna say, so a lot of real estate investors doing it for a long time. They never do the jump. They always stay in
Yeah.
residential. They
Oh,
feel
totally.
comfortable with 2 family, 3 family, 4 families. They have they like Fannie and Freddie loans. That's it, and they feel comfortable with that because that's what they need. In your case, definitely you say $100 after all this work, it makes no sense. And it's not scalable. Unless you have like 100 doors, and then it's gonna be a lot of work. Um, so you say I'm gonna go large multifamily. So how was the transition? How do you learn, and how did you went from like just one property and just buy your first large multifamily property?
Dude, I went cold turkey, man. I just like that's kind of what I was alluding to earlier with the goals thing was like you got to know where you're going.
Mm,
And I knew I wanted to be in multifamily in some way, shape, or form. But then when I started learning about the benefits of debt service coverage ratio loans and apartment complexes and being able to use other people's money to buy them, like let me ask you, Carlos, if you could buy if you could buy any property in the world that makes money and use none of your own money to do it, how much would you buy?
As much as you can.
All of it. I'd buy all of it, right? So that's when I was like, okay, well, how do I end up in that seat where I can do those types of things? And I found like a bunch of Facebook groups that were commercial real estate focused. I became involved in those groups and I just started networking with people. And that's why it took me 2 years in order to establish myself, right? To
Mm.
learn how to underwrite, to learn the lingo, to build relationships with people that would invest with me by making relationships with people that would partner with me. And that was the biggest thing. It was like, when you buy a commercial real estate deal, you literally have to have nothing to get into the deal. And people are like, what are you talking about? Right. So, like, one of my the very first deal, I was invited into the deal to help with asset management because I had done a lot of things for these guys over the past. And like, I had a really good rapport and they just wanted to help me out because they had seen I had been trying to get into a deal for a couple of years now and nothing was really working out. So they kind of threw down the rope and helped me out. But it's only because I was consistent and I helped them out. Right. I return, the law of reciprocity. Right. So I helped them out for the better part of a year and a half before I got an opportunity. But then the next deal after that, I didn't find the deal. I didn't raise all the money. I didn't sign on the debt. And I still walked away with a piece of equity in the deal. Right. And it's like, huh. So you don't have to find the deal. You don't have to raise the money. You don't have to have the net worth to sign on the loan. The barrier to entry is building a relationship with somebody that has those things. Right. And you have to figure out, how am I going to provide value to somebody so that I can get in an opportunity for a seat at the table, even if I don't have to do it for nothing, for free. And I was willing to do it for free. I did it for free for years. I said, what do I have to do to get a seat at the table in order to get a piece of equity? Because I know that the relationships that I build and the experience that I get, everybody will take that away from me. And it can only grow upon those things. So I'm willing to sacrifice now so that I can have success later. And what I did was I borrowed beliefs from other people. I read all the books and I watched the podcast and I was in the Facebook groups and I go to the commercial like conferences and all that kind of stuff. And
Mm.
I said, wait a second, like I just got to keep doing this and providing values to others with no expectation of return. And eventually the law of reciprocity will come back and pay me tenfold. Right. And most people quit until they get to that point because, we live in a society now where you want instant gratification, and it's just not how it works. Right. I mean, the best deals that we do, our best commercial real estate deals that we do are from relationships that were built over the last couple of years. And people ask me now, they're like, how many deals do you underwrite before you buy one? I'm like, none. Like when somebody brings me a deal, I know I'm going to buy it because we have that level of relationship now. So the whole concept changes. The most difficult thing about commercial real estate is getting into commercial real estate. But once you get onto the other side of the fence, you can never come back over the other side because you've done something that most people in their entire life could never even conceptualize. And I couldn't even conceptualize saying that I could be the person that was doing it um, until like way down the path, right? Like I actually had I went surfing on Saturday with a friend of mine because the waves here were going off on Saturday, and then after it we ended up going out for a beer and a coffee or whatever, and we're just sitting there talking. And I showed one of my friends. I was like, look at what my goals were. I wrote these goals in June of 2019, and it was like by 2024, I wanted to own 2 single family houses, right? And I was like, I never thought that I'd be in the position that I am today, but I'm only here because of the way that I was willing to give up instant gratification for long-term success.
Definitely. So there are different approaches. Some people say, okay, I do need to come out with like raising capital, finding the deal, signing the loan. You say, okay, my approach was just networking and just do
Mhm,
for just pay forward and just be
mhm,
able to show value and be able to
right.
cross the fence, like you say. Okay, so you
Mhm.
did that. So how did you find your first deal, the 90 something property unit that you bought in Georgia, and what? How do you decide that was going to be the market?
So that's not really a good one to use in an example because I was invited into that partnership. Like I
Okay.
didn't do anything to find that deal, right? They literally called me on my birthday and they said, "Hey, we're closing on this deal in 2 weeks." They've already raised the money, they found the deal, they did the they did literally everything. They're like, "Hey, look, we need help. We're getting too big. We need help and you have gone above and beyond and you have helped us out over and over and over and over and over again and you never want anything in return." And I'm like, no, because I just do it because I want to. Like I like this stuff. I want to be involved.
Sure.
And they were like, those are the types of people we want involved in our lives too. So they're like, we want you to come in. We're going to give you a piece of equity in this deal. And, we're going to show you how to do these things. And in order to help you kind of get your real estate journey started. Now, the next deal after that was, I had been working on these relationships forever and, just found a way to provide value to them as well, right? And we found this deal because of a relationship. He's now my business partner, Tim Vest, who Tim Vest found this deal, which he's amazing at. Like that's what he loves doing. He loves deal searching. He builds relationships with brokers. He likes negotiating deals and negotiating contracts, and he's very creative. And I'm kind of the opposite. I like doing the underwriting. I like doing the insurance and the debt and the deal structure and like all that kind of stuff. So he found the deal and I underwrote it. And then we had another partner that Tim had built a relationship with a guy that had already done some commercial real estate in the past, and he could sign on the loan for us. Actually, one of the guys, we partnered with Javier Noho. We partnered with him on this deal. And we're like, hey, Javier, like we're part of your mastermind group. We know each other. We've been buddy. We need somebody to help us out with this loan. Are you interested? We'll give you a piece of equity. And he was like, yeah, sure, of course. Right. But that's because we built a relationship with him. So at that point, we had somebody sign on the loan. Tim Vest found the deal, and then I underwrote it and did all the deal structure and all that kind of stuff. And then collectively, as a group, we went out to our networks and we were like, okay, we need to raise $1 million. Where I ended up raising like maybe 300,000 or 400,000, which was surprising to me for my very first deal. So I ended up raising like a third of the money by reaching out to my network and saying I had this opportunity if you wanted to invest. And people had already started to trust me in the multifamily space because of the people I was associated with and also how I was involved in the community. It wasn't just kind of showing up at town hall where I don't know anybody. I don't even know the names of people in town hall and saying, hey, I need $100,000 to buy this deal. Who wants to invest with me? Nobody's going to invest with you because you didn't build a relationship with them first. So that's kind of how that came to fruition. But we chose that market because it was in Somerville, South Carolina. And we basically said, I lived in Charlotte at the time. So Tim Vest and I were like, okay, we're going to draw a 4-hour circle around Charlotte. And we're going to look for deals in any one of these markets. And we weren't buying deals in Charlotte, Raleigh, Charleston, and Greenville because it was like a major market. It was super hot. Like this is 2021. Prices are through the roof. And all right, well, we need to find some smaller markets that there is yield in. And, so we looked, so we were inside of our 4-hour circle, but then any of those major metros, we say, okay, well, let's go an hour outside of those major metros. And then, we'll stay within those regions. And that's how we ended up finding this guy in Charleston and found this deal in Somerville. And Tim Vest was the creative one and said, what if we did this? And I could turn that, whatever's going on up here, I could turn that into numbers on the Excel spreadsheet and provide investor return numbers. And lo and behold, it started to make sense. We were like, hell, let's buy it. And, we were off to the races.
How many units? What was that? Was that the first deal that you do with?
It was a 32 unit. It's actually we're actually selling it. Should be closing November 30th.
So you got a bridge loan in that one?
Yeah.
Okay. So that was the first. How did you get? How did you? Well, obviously, it's a working relationship, but how did you meet a team? And how do you partner? The question is because usually we tend to partner with people like they are like ourselves, and that's the biggest mistake. You say, okay, he's not like me. He's the opposite. We complement each other, which is great. A lot of times you see people, I partner with this guy, which is the same. They're both analytic or they're both visionary, and then they get analysis paralysis, or they start buying things that they don't make sense because they just want to do deals. In your case, how did you find him, and how did you guys decide to partner up?
Yeah, so it was the middle of COVID, 2020, and Tim Vest was part of a mastermind group that I was interested in joining. And I saw that he was part of the group and we hadn't met each other yet. And I was like, your name's Tim V too. Let's get up and have coffee sometime. I want to talk to you about this guy's group. And we ended up chatting and, I'm a very honest and transparent person. We ended up sitting outside of the Starbucks in the middle of COVID for like 4 hours and they kicked us out. They're like, all right, guys, you got to go now because we're closing. Because remember, during COVID, Starbucks were closing at like 3:00 in the afternoon, right? They weren't staying open all the time. So we were sitting outside, just kind of talking. And I was, just kind of building a relationship. We're talking about what do we like to do? What do you do for work? How does that work? What's your real estate experience? And what do you like doing there? How's that working out for you? And then we just talked, right? And we kept in touch. And then a couple days or a couple weeks later, he texts me. I had reached out to him, right? Because building relationships takes effort, and I'm very good at like, reaching out to people to like make a relationship. And he was like, "Hey, I'm going to go down to Anderson to look at this deal." And I called him. And I was like, "Cool, pick me up. I'm coming with you." And he's like, "What?" I was like, "Pick me up. I'm going to take the rest of the day off, and I'll go with you." He goes, okay. So he ended up picking me up from my house, and we spent another 4 or 5 hours in the car going to look at that deal and talking about deal structure and debt and this, all these different kind of things. And it just kind of snowballed from there. But we didn't do our first deal for a year. Like, we were friends for over a year before we actually got into a deal together. And it just, our morals align, the way we think about business aligns, the way we take care of our investor aligns. All of those things are important, but he likes to do the things that I hate doing. And I told him up front, like, because I was very good and very diligent about identifying my puzzle piece, as I like to call it. And like, I knew where I could help other people in the picture, right? I could plug into other people and help them, but I also knew what I needed help with. And I knew that I'm more of a non-confrontational type, so I don't really like negotiating deals. Because for me, it's numbers. It's like, this is what it's worth. Like, this is what I'm going to pay for it. And it just doesn't work that way in real estate, as you know. So he's very good at kind of negotiating and doing this and that and whatever. And I like the underwriting, and he doesn't really love underwriting. And I do. Like, I love it. Right. I mean, I teach an underwriting class twice a week for an hour each time. And I've been doing that for 2.5 years, 3.5 years now. And I do it. I love it. Right. It's fun to me. So yeah, so we just kind of connected there, and we got into deals together, and some partners kind of phased in and phased out, and we continued to see each other in difficult situations and how each other reacted. And Tim and I, we had bought together like $100 million worth of real estate before we created a partnership, right? Like, I was my company and he was his company, and we just co-GP'd on a lot of stuff. Because what do they say? Marry slow, right? Date fast,
Yeah.
marry slow. And yeah, so like, we didn't make a formal partnership until May of this year, 2023. So we were friends for 2.5, 3 years. We had done $100 million worth of deals, 1,000 apartment units. And then, like, let's make a company together, kind of brand together, and we'll start a property management company. And now we have employees, and we're self-managing and become a vertical company and all that kind of stuff, and really kind of taking it to the next level.
Love it. So 32 units, first complex that you guys did. Which one was the second one? And then how did you guys scale for that to like 1,000 units? You
Man,
said.
so I did the 92 unit first without Tim, with a
Yeah.
different partnership group. Then I did
Yes.
32 units with Tim and this other guy. And then we did 24 units with Tim and this other guy. And then I quit my W-2 job. And I was like, wait a second. Like, I see there's something going on here. Because my job, this was late 2020, August 2021, September 2021. My boss goes, "Hey, everybody's going back to the office if you like it or not." And I was like, that doesn't really work for me, because I'm like doing this, they didn't know about it, but I was doing like the real estate stuff. And it's like, you're going to fire me for being on the phone all day doing not work stuff. Right. My wife had quit her job at the time to start her own business. So she was like full gung ho and like, yeah, like, let's just kind of burn the ships type of thing. So she actually came to me and said, let's just sell the house. And I was like, what are you talking about? She goes, well, sell the house. We had like $150,000 in equity or so.
Mm.
And I was like, okay, well, if we sold the house, that's like 2 years worth of expenses. 2 years was September 2023 was 2 years, right?
Right.
And I was like, if I can't put any money into the bank account in 2 years, it was never meant to be, right? So the timeline there was August 13th, Friday, August 13th, I did the first deal, was that 92 unit. And then August, we did the 24 unit. Then we did the 32 unit. And then September, I quit my W-2 job. October 31st, we moved from Charlotte to Wilmington. And November 10th, we sold on the sale of our house in Charlotte. And that put the money in our bank account in order to go full time into the business. And then from that point, all I did was work like around the clock. I just, it's that sink or swim feeling. Like, I don't know where money's coming from anymore. I'm going to work my ass off now, But I had a track record. I had done a couple deals. We had some like kind of we had a vision of like what was coming in the pipeline and what we could do. And if I only had more time to dedicate towards this, I'd be able to make more money. So that's what I did. I quit my W-2 job and I went all in on the business. And then I don't think we bought anything else in 2021, but then in 2022, we bought like 12 deals.
Okay, let's before we go down. So you guys burned the boats, like Tony Robbins said, to conquer
Well,
the
I
island.
burned the boats in September of 2021. He burned the ships in April of 22.
Okay, but your wife, I mean, you guys
Oh
sell
yeah.
the house
Yep.
and you guys move.
Hmm.
So you were working 60 hours a day. You said, I have to make it happen. My
Hmm.
wife is dependent on me. What was your role? What were you doing? Because you said you didn't buy any property until the year after. So what were those hours? Um,
It was continually, it's networking, it's underwriting, it's building relationships with investors, it's digging your well before you need to drink, right? I mean, because once you're thirsty, you're not going to want to dig a well when you're thirsty.
sure.
So there's so much work that goes into bricklaying, right? You gotta do all the foundation first before you can start laying the bricks. Um, and that time was absolutely necessary in my career in order to make sure I had the time and the ability to build the relationships that were necessary for me to grow. So I
Okay.
was going to like mastermind events, like Tim Bratz held a mastermind event. I joined Javier's mastermind group. I had gone like a bunch of different events with him. A whole slew of things, right? Started going to a lot of conferences and just networking and networking, networking and networking, and networking, because you're only one relationship away from changing your life. So how do you increase the ability or the odds of changing your life? You go to more opportunities where you can meet more people. And then eventually you're going to find those people that are going to change your life, right? It's easy math in my brain, right? So I started going to more events and I started doing all the Zoom calls and I started going to investor meetups and I started making phone calls to people and saying, hey, I know we talked about some real estate investing stuff in the past. Like, what's your appetite look like now? And then just, it was the same process over a very long period of time.
So it's 2020, 21, at the end, you went full end. So you say how many properties did you guys get in 2022? 12?
Yeah, like 12 properties. Yeah.
Okay. And how did you still buy like bridge loans with those
Mhm.
22 properties? How many units did you buy? What would your buying box criteria?
Man, we were buying, it had to be a good deal, right? So that was a good part about me and Tim being partners was
Mm,
I had no emotional attachment to the property because I've never seen it. I don't really care about it, right? To me, it was all about what do the numbers look like on the spreadsheet? And if the spreadsheet says good deal, we buy it, right? And if the spreadsheet said bad deal, we made an offer and we moved on to the next one. And I mean, we were just doing value add deal. It had to be in North and South Carolina. It had to
mm,
have a value add component. I wanted to be able to refinance my investors' money out in 2 to 3 years or sell it and provide like a 60 to 100% return in 2 to 3 years. And if it met those underwriting criteria, I bought it. Right. And that's what we did. And thankfully, most of the deals that we have today are, we have a lot of equity built up into them because we were so successful with the value add strategy. And I'd like to toot my own horn and say that, we're the best operators ever, but there was a lot of like market economics that helped us.
yep.
But I'm very thankful that we did execute the business plan because now, as interest rates continue to rise and insurance rates continue to rise, our NOI is going down, right? So, therefore, it makes your property less valuable. So, at what we thought we were going to be able to refinance and pull everybody's money out and then move on to the next one, now we're just able to refinance and get the original loan out of the way, but the money is safe, the investors are safe, like all that kind of stuff. But if we did not execute on the business plan properly, we would have not been able to refinance these deals and we would have been in a very bad position. So we still bought good deals, right? And we still did the value add and we're still creating equity, but the market has changed. And because the market has changed, some of the metrics on our numbers have changed. But if you look at it from a more positive perspective, is like if we didn't execute and buy as good as we did, if these things had happened to us and we didn't purchase it correctly, then we would have been underwater and we would not been in a position to save everybody's money, right? Or to prolong the asset, right? Because real estate is cyclical.
Yep.
So we bought it as it was going up and we, continue to force the equity, and we have. But now that the values are starting to drop a little bit, well, we're going to refinance it. We're going to put long-term stabilized debt, and we'll ride out that kind of curve. And then as the rate, it's the, interest rates are already starting to kind of stabilize and come back down. Insurance rates will start coming back down as well soon as well. So like, maybe another 24 to 36 months, we hold these properties and then we'd look at selling them then. But if we didn't execute on our value add strategy, we wouldn't be in the position to be able to refinance, because a lot of people in the industry right now, they are doing a lot of cash in refinances, or they may even be in default and just have to give the keys back to the property because they can't, because their balloons are coming due and they can't do anything with it. Right. So there's a lot of negative press right now around people or operators that have not bought right and executed right, and because now they're coming to the end of their balloon payments and they're not able to service their debt, and now you're in a really bad spot.
Yeah, I was gonna ask you that question later, but so you went from like how many units from 2021 to 2024? Usually you have like 92, and then the 23 units that you did, 32.
Yeah, I probably had I don't know, like 170 units or so, and by
Okay.
the end of 2021, and then by the end of 2022 I had like 850 something.
Okay, so that growing so fast is great, but at the same time, you have a lot of things going on and behind the scenes, like the management of the property. Like it's a lot of work and effort to be able to acquire the property, but then when you have to execute the plan that you said, sometimes is for a lot of people it's the hardest part of the business. In your case, I know you mentioned before that you opened your management company now 2023, but last year did you guys use like you guys were like using like local property management companies?
Mhm.
You have your own that you really like, and how was the transition from there to now that you guys, I guess, are managing most of your properties?
Yeah, we used all third-party managers, right?
Okay,
Until we opened up our own management company, and we don't manage 100% of our portfolio right now.
okay,
We're taking over the properties that we could, and the properties that we can manage are the ones that have on-site management. It's the property portfolio, because they were kind of like a 30 unit here, 40 unit there, and kind of sporadic. But there wasn't enough like economies of scale to be able to support payroll for a single person to manage those. So we're
sure.
still using third party on some of our portfolio, and we're selling a lot of the smaller stuff now so that we can reconsolidate everything and just manage larger properties that we're going to use our own management company.
Sure.
But really, the biggest change going from third party management to self management is the speed and agility and the ability to pivot much quicker. Um, a saying I like to go by now is be the boss, not the client. Because when I ask my employees to do something, it gets done immediately. When I ask a third party manager to do something, it might get done sometime this month. And that doesn't work for me and my investors. So, really, it was in the best interest of our investors in order to start our own management company so that we have that speed and that agility and the ability to control our own destiny when it comes to rental income and expenses.
Okay, and in terms of like usually when you talk about real estate, talk obviously on the units and everything. So let's talk about your best and your worst deal,
Mhm.
best of worst case scenario. So because
Wait, best deal or and worst deal, or best of a worst case scenario?
either or whatever you want to do.
I mean, the worst deal that I have is this one down in Alabama. The insurance, man, just went from $700 a unit to $2,200 a unit, and
Okay.
the rents are not, they're like low 900s to 1,000 average. And the rents are going up, but you go from, the expense used to be around 17,000, and now the expense is $81,000, and that's $60,000 of NOI on a $2 million property.
Yeah.
Completely changes the landscape. So it's not that we didn't execute the business plan. It's just, our something that we couldn't control drastically changed the outcome of that deal. So we're currently working on either selling the property to get our investors' money out and just kind of remove the liability. We're also kind of running a refinance at the same time, because we can, again, what I was saying earlier was we still executed on the business plan. We created value. We're able to refinance, right? Unfortunately, maybe not be able to return the investors' money, but
Sure.
nobody's going to be losing money, because then we would put like a 5 year loan on it. And, when the market kind of turns around, remember it's cyclical. When the market turns around again, we'll look at turn around and sell it. When interest rates come back down, insurance rates come back down. Now your NOI looks better. People can borrow money at cheaper rates, and now you can look at exiting it at a profit instead of a break even.
Sure.
And then the best deal that we ever did was a deal that we got from a third party property management company. We paid $4 million for a 31 unit built to rent, basically a built to rent community outside of Charleston, and we bought it for $4 million, and it appraised for 5.5 day one. And we're actually looking to sell that now because we brought the rents from like 1,600 up to about 1,900. So we increased the rents about $300-$400 on average, and probably looking at selling that for mid $7 million range. So
Amazing.
all in cost for like 4.5, sell it for 7.3, 7.5. You're looking at $3 million, $3.5 million of equity there. That we put down about $1.4 million with investor cash. So there's quite a bit of meat on the bone there for us and the investors.
Definitely. So right now, are you still buying properties, or your focus is just establish the management company, take over the property that you want to take over to, or you want to continue scaling and just
Oh,
go
we're still
buy?
buying. We're still
Okay.
buying. So we're closing a 356 unit next week.
Okay.
But we're buying and selling constantly because the market's going to go up and it's going to go down. And as long as you're underwriting for those numbers, then your buy box is still the same. It's just the metrics look different, if that
No,
makes sense.
yeah.
So
So you said you have a bunch of like 30 units, but you said that you buy 300 units, correct?
mhm.
It's just one building, or it's a portfolio?
It's a 4 property portfolio that we're buying.
Okay.
Yeah, so it's 356 total. It's split between 4 properties
And where are they located?
in Mississippi.
Okay. So you guys moving out of like the Carolinas?
Yeah, obviously our first preference is to be in the Carolinas, but when this deal came up, we couldn't say no to it. So not saying that we are done with the Carolinas, like that's our first preference, but
Sure.
if something comes up of that size and there's that much money to be made on it and the numbers made sense, well, a mentor of ours once said, you got to go where there's yield. And if there's very little yield in high growth markets, then, you kind of have to go where there's yield and where there's equity to be made.
Sure. And it's great that you mentioned that. Some people like, they get stuck in a location, or they
Mhm.
try to invest in real estate and they don't adapt. And like you said, real estate is cyclical, but things don't go up forever, don't go down forever. And it happens with the market as well. So I
Yeah.
always give the example about like Austin, Texas. Everybody wanted to be there at one point because it was growing like crazy. I remember bigger
Mhm.
pockets just mentioned every single week, and now people like they overpay for a bunch of properties and they're suffering right now. I mean, not all of them, but some of them they
Yeah.
decide to go to the market.
Yeah. I was recently talking with a guy that owns a management company for retail businesses in Austin, Texas. It's the largest retail management company in Texas for triple net retail stuff.
Yeah.
And he was talking about how he's got one owner that paid like a 2.5 or a 3% cap rate for this triple net deal. And they wanted to just get out of it because they were tired of dealing with it. And he was like, cap rates now have decompressed so much, and you bought literally at the peak. If you sold this today, you would have to pay the lender money to get out of it. So he's
Yeah.
like, the only option that you have is to put this in your estate and pass it down to your heirs, and hopefully they can make money on it if the market turns around that much again.
Yeah.
So there's some people that a lot of people got frustrated with not being able to find deals, and they're like, how are people paying these prices for these deals? Because not every investor is a smart investor, right? I mean, maybe they were just buying something because they had some level of emotional attachment to it, or they didn't understand what they were getting, or whatever have you, right? I mean, just because they bought it doesn't mean it's a good deal. I mean, there's always property for sale, but there's very few good deals.
Definitely. So real estate, you've been doing a lot of stuff in the last couple of years. I mean, you guys growing really fast. When did you guys decided to start education? I know you guys do like podcasts all the time. You do like the underwriter class. Then you guys have a group. When did you guys decide to do that? And how did you guys? I mean, how is that
I
doing?
started the Making Moves in Multifamily group in May. I think it was May of 2021. So
Okay.
before I quit my W-2 job, because really what I wanted a platform to be able to showcase my expertise
Sure.
and to help other people. And I was a part of a lot of different groups, and as I'm sure you are as well. But like I didn't have the opportunity to have a voice, and I love having a voice. And my value is important, and your value is important, and your perspective and my perspective are both important. And somebody out there needs to hear our perspective and our knowledge on the subject. And if you don't have the ability to have a platform to have your voice heard, then you're doing the world a disservice by not helping others with what skill sets and tools and traits you have available to you. So I created that group, and man, like I guess in late 2021, I asked Tim Vitale, I was like, "Hey Tim, you want to be part of this with me? Like this is so fun. Like, do you want to come on and start doing this podcast with me every Tuesday?" And then I renamed it, and then it was still making moves in multifamily, but now it's the Tim and Tim Tuesdays at 10, right, for the alliteration. So we do that every Tuesday at 10 a.m. Eastern time, and I just love it, man. And it helps us. It helps us with attracting investors. It helps us attracting coaching students. It helps us attract uh, properties for sale, brokers. Like we know a lot of our brokers that we do a lot of business with, they watch our show, and what it does is it enables the people listening to the show an opportunity to build a relationship with you. Because even though I haven't met 99% of my audience, they know, like, and trust me based on the content that I'm putting out, because I'm so vulnerable and transparent about everything that we're doing. They already feel like they know me because I'm basically having a conversation with them. But well, we use StreamYard as well, but they can use like comments and stuff like that, right? To kind of post and whatnot. So, it creates like this interactive environment, and it really helps build relationships on a mass scale compared to more of a one-on-one. Like, how do you always put yourself in a one-to-many situation instead of a one-to-one situation? Because that's a better use of your time as one-to-many. And that was ultimately what I did. I just love it, man. I mean, clearly you see I like to talk a little bit. So,
Yes.
it really helps me kind of just help everybody else out, right? With like, what am I seeing? What am I doing? What's it look like? What's it feel like? Just kind of letting other people see behind the curtains in order to help inspire them to do something similar. And if they aren't inspired to do it similarly, then hope if they become to trust me, and they're like, you know what, I've tried to do what you do, Tim. I just can't. I want to get into real estate, but I can't. So here's some money. I'm going to invest with you as an investor because I trust you. Like I see what you're doing. I see what you're going through. I know where you started. I know where you are today. I've seen your track record and your progress and your performance. And like, I want to be a part of that. And that ultimately kind of drives a whole lot of different things, between the coaching, the, investors and brokers too.
So how much of your time is you spend in the educational part right now?
Like 3 hours a week.
Okay, that's not really. So you have a team behind you that do the admin and the videos, or you just post the
Nope.
videos where they are?
Yep, we just do it. We don't edit it. We just raw. I don't believe in doctoring stuff up, right? I want it to be raw. I want it to be real. I want it to be transparent. I want to make mistakes so that other people will feel comfortable to make mistakes as well. Because I don't want them to think that I'm perfect, because I'm not. Not every deal that I've done is gone perfectly, but I have done everything in my power in order to protect and save the people within those deals, right? And that is the most important part of being somebody that is going to coach other people how to do what we do, but also for investors to know that, hey, like, investing still is a risk at the end of the day, but who am I going to trust that's going to go above and beyond at all costs to try to save my money in this deal, rather than just say, oh, I'm done with this. It's hard. It's difficult. I'm just going to walk away. Sorry, investors, like you signed up for this risk and you lost, and that's it, right? No, like I don't look at it that way. So, that gives people confidence to invest in me, because I'm just another guy. I'm just a real guy, just like you are, and I just show people that.
Yeah, and in order to do this, you have to love it. Because
You gotta love it. Oh my God, you gotta
gotta
love it.
love it. You have you know people that they get into the podcast wagon because they
Hmm.
see like bigger packet, they see someone like you, and this miserable for them. They do like 4 or 5 episodes. They buy the expensive equipment. They're like, this sucks. It's horrible.
Hmm.
You have to love it because it takes time to get some traction,
Hmm.
and you have to start looking forward to it. So let me ask you a question in terms of like your personal life. So you went to school. If you can go back to your like 16 years old when you finished school, Would you go back to school and just study the accountant and all those financial? Because although I mean, it seems like that's playing really well for you as well in the industry. But would you do that, or would you decide to spend the time, those 4 years, in terms of like let me just try to do the real estate thing then?
Nah. Um, I wouldn't change my past because
Right.
my past is what has put me to where I am today.
Sure.
And if I didn't have the education and the experiences that I had in my corporate life,
Mm,
they wouldn't have shaped me to think the way that I do.
okay.
And I give a lot of credit to my old boss, Jen. She was the best boss and really kind of challenged me to like think differently about assumptions and things. So, like in the finance world, asking better questions. And sometimes it's just asking a question instead of just saying nothing.
Sure.
So there's a lot of things that skill sets and traits that I learned in my W-2 life that really make it so that I provide a more professional service in my own entrepreneurial life. Now, if you don't have an interest in taking other people's money and you just want to do it yourself, go ahead. But I believe that partnerships make it so that you can go a lot farther than where you could go on your own.
Sure.
And for me, that looked like using other people's money to go do these syndications, to buy these deals, to learn to grow and provide a service to them. And the service that I provide is I create money for people, right? I invest money for people in real estate to make them a return on their investment. I get paid to do that service, right? So I still have a job. I'm still providing a service and I get equity and the cash flow and all these things from these deals that I do. And then what I do from that is I take that money and then I go invest it into real estate myself, right?
Sure.
So if you have the opportunity to make a lot of money in a W-2 job or some other kind of business or service, go do that. And then go take the money that you're able to make easily that you love doing, right? First and foremost, what we just talked about, you got to love doing it. Go make money wherever you can and then take that money and invest it into long-term assets that are going to grow in value, right? I do the same thing. I just what my long-term vision is, I continue to provide services for people. I make money by providing that service, but then I also take my profits and I go invest it into long-term assets that continue to go up in value. Just so happens it's the same industry, but the concept is the same.
Totally. How did you experience right now raising capital? So a lot of
Oh,
fear.
it's hard, man. Oh,
Yeah.
it's so hard right now with, stocks getting crushed and there's a lot of fear in the market and when people say, when there's fear in the streets or blood in the streets, you go all in or whatever. And now's the best time to be buying real estate, right? It's like, we're buying that 356 unit property and the rent, I mean, the insurance is like $2,000 a unit. Well, I also have an experience where I was on the other side of that, where I went from 700 to 2,000. So
Mm,
now when it comes back down from 2,000 goes back to 1,000, now I look like a genius. I just made a ton of money and I didn't have to do anything because I bought it in a bad market. And if you
sure.
buy it in a bad market and you create value, you're going to end up in the long run doing very well.
So the people that selling to you, are they in trouble right now because the insurance were high?
No,
No, they just
no,
decide.
just time to get out for him. Just like I made my money. I'm getting out and moving on to the next thing.
Perfect. Wonderful. Okay, so time flew. I already been doing it for like 55 minutes, and thank you for your time. I want to take advantage of your time. So let me ask you a couple of questions that we also ask our all guests.
Sure.
So I see the surf on board in the back. So what are your hobbies? What do you like to do when you are not crunching numbers, when you are not doing networking, when you are not doing podcasts? It obviously could be one of your hobbies because you enjoy so much. But
Man,
besides,
I d it's so funny. I mean, my life is real estate and I love it. Like I love networking. I love going to the events. I love speaking engagements. I love podcasts. I love all of those things, right? So those are super fun things for me to do. But I also like playing pickleball. I like to play golf. I like to go surfing. I like going out in my boat. Um, what else? I mean, I like making barbecue. Smoking meats. I like cigars and bourbon and all of the things.
all,
Video
all,
games.
all,
Oh,
all
new Call of Duty just came out, so I've been playing a lot of Call of Duty.
yeah, and pickleball. Let's talk about that. It's a super super trending sport right now. It's, I think one
Mhm.
of the fastest growing sports in the state in the nation.
Yeah.
So how do you get related? I mean, in the ecosystem of pickleball, and how often did you play?
Man, I saw somebody was talking about it on Facebook, and I was like, "Man, that looks like a lot of fun." And, he actually had said, "Oh, I meet actually a lot of investors, like, people that have a lot of money play pickleball." I was like, "Oh, cool. That's
So,
aligns with my interests. Like, I
so,
need
so
that."
win-win.
Yeah, it's a win-win. So then I found on Facebook, I was like, pickleball in my area. And there was a Facebook group, and they said, they every Tuesday, Thursday, Saturday from 7 a.m. to 11 a.m. they have the courts reserved, and you can just show up and play for free. So I
Mm.
just, I bought a paddle, and I came with my wife, and we went one time, and I was hooked. I was hooked immediately. I was like, oh my God, this is great. Like this, it's like a mental stimulation. It's
Did you
physical stimulation.
you played tennis before? Any
No, no, I've never played any racket sport before.
okay.
Yeah. So I got into it that way, and I just fell in love with it. And man, there was a period of time where I was playing like like twice a week for like 3 hours every single time. So like 6 hours a week I was playing. But lately, we've, with the baby on the way and had a lot of things going on in the business, and excuse after excuse, I haven't played in a couple of weeks, but I need to get back out there. And I actually thought about playing on Thursday, but it's Thanksgiving, so I don't know if they're going to be doing the organized
I'm
play
sure
or
they
not.
will. I'm sure
Yeah.
they'll. I'm sure they'll be open. Okay.
Oh,
So,
actually, I played a couple weeks ago when we were in Georgia for the GoBundance event. I played the pickleball there.
oh, the Connie.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yep.
And how did it go?
Oh, it was great. It was super fun. I got to teach a bunch of people how to play, and they got hooked on it. And I was like, dude, this is the best thing ever.
Super nice. Yeah, we get into it with the girls, with my two daughters, my wife recently. I think that was last year, and then we
Hmm.
play like at least once every other week, and it's
Yeah.
great. I mean, I used to play ping pong before, and now I just playing the pickleball.
Yeah. Oh, it's
Super
fantastic.
fun. Super
Yeah.
fun. I see that you have a couple books in the back.
Yeah.
Can you recommend us a book? Like something like you said, you know
Dude.
what? Reach that for that something is a book that everybody, I mean not everybody, most of us read at least once, if not twice. But besides that book, what other books or one or two books that
And
want
I mean, so down there, yeah, Creative Cash. That's by Bill Ham. It talks about like seller financing, master lease options, kind of land contracts and all that kind of stuff. So like now more than ever, having an understanding how to structure a deal creatively as a buyer and a seller is important to know how to do. And it really kind of opens up a lot of doors. Going back to my first real estate deal, that I bought for 76,000. I ended up refinancing it. I left $19,000 in the deal, right? I sold that deal 2.5 years later for 150,000, and I netted 85K. And then I took that 85K and I went and bought a 24 unit apartment complex with it, because I was able to get the seller. I paid $910,000 for the apartment complex. I got the seller to hold back $250,000 towards the down payment. And then I used $70,000 of that $85,000 to go buy that property, the 24 unit property. So now I own a 24 unit apartment complex with no partners, nobody, just me, right? And I bought that a year ago, and it just fell out of contract, but I was about to sell that property for just over $1.7 million. So in a year, you're making like $700,000 in a year, right? And it grows and snowballs, right? All because of that book. Taught me how to do creative seller financing offers. The other ones that have completely changed my life: Never Split the Difference by Chris Voss, Who Not How by Dan Sullivan, Flip the Script, I forget, by Oren Klaff, and then obviously the Multifamily Millions by David Lindell.
I read like most of the one up there. Which one was the name of the one, the cash? Because the cash
Creative Cash by Bill Ham.
creative cash. I have to do that one. Sounds pretty nice. And like you said before, those created finances, I think is the way to go right now, because
Hmm.
way the market is and the conditions and everything. So obviously it doesn't work for everybody. You have to find a motivated and knowledgeable sellers to be able to get into the conversation. But I think that's part of the business, be able
Yep.
to connect the
Yep.
dots. Great. So now, I don't know if you watch any movies. I know you said you play a lot of
Oh, I love movies, man.
so okay, recommend us one movie that you really really like.
Well, what kind of genre are you talking about?
Anything that people want to spend 2 hours, could be like something that they can learn something about it, or just something that they want to have fun.
Man, I really love anything on Netflix by David Attenborough. Like Life on Our Planet is great. Any of those Planet Earth videos, anything by David Attenborough, I absolutely love those things. But then like some of my favorite movies of all time are like Anchorman and what's the other one? My Cousin Vinny, if you've ever seen that, and Dazed and Confused is up way up there for me. So there's quite a few movies that I just absolutely love.
Pretty nice. So the last question, what is your differentiator? How come you can do all the things that you have done? So many people right now are having a hard time in the business. Some people are getting out of the business. I know people that were doing real estate for multifamily for a couple of years, and right now they're going to do, it's still real estate land, or they're going to do other asset class. So how come you're doing what you're doing in this short amount of time, because it was just few years, and it seems the you continue growing and growing. You're vertical integrated, which is ideal for a lot of people. They're looking for like institutional money as well. So what are your differentiator?
I'm just crystal clear on exactly what I want. Like I have my goals written down on a piece of paper, literally right here on my desk, right? And if an opportunity comes up to me, I don't get the squirrel syndrome or whatever. Like I know exactly what I want to achieve, and I know what my long term vision looks like. So then that makes it very easy for me to say yes, I want to do something, or no, I don't. And I don't sit there and try to make sure that it's the best investment ever or the best decision ever, or like, I just make decisions and I don't get stuck on stuff, because your life is a series of decisions. And if it aligns with where you want to go, then just make one decision at a time. And, anxiety is created by trying to figure out solutions to problems that don't exist. Right. So that's why I answer the question for what's at hand, what's right in front of me. What are we solving problems for today? And then moving on to the next problem, instead of trying to figure out, well, if I make this decision, what else is it going to impact? Like, yeah, there is some level of that, but some people can go so down the rabbit hole of trying to make sure that they covered all their bases and that it's the best decision. And I hate when people say, I got to make the best decision. No, you just need to make a decision. Make one decision and then move on to the next decision and the next one. Now, don't try to think about the best decision, because you'll never come to an answer.
Totally, that's great. What can people find about you? I'm sure a lot of people want to continue listening to all the stories, all of the process. Like right now, you're in a journey, and obviously, it seems it's gonna be like a really uh, entertaining journey in real estate. So, where can people follow you and just reach out if they want to connect with you?
Join our Facebook group, Making Moves in Multifamily. Every Tuesday, Tim and I do a Facebook Live. We talk about real stuff in the industry. What are we working with? What are we struggling with? What are things that we're seeing changing in the market? And we just fully transparent and honest about what we're doing and how we're seeing things in order to, provide value to the community. So Facebook's good. I have an Instagram, which is Tim Vitale Official, like at Tim Vitale Official. LinkedIn, you can search me Tim Vitale on LinkedIn. But yeah.
That's great. Tim, it's a pleasure. Thank you for being with us. Don't go anyway. I'd like to say bye to you. But for everybody else, thank you for being with us one more time. We're gonna have another guest next week. And if you have any questions regarding real estate investing, and you want to know more about what we do to serve our community, you can reach us. You can send us a DM, or you can subscribe to our channel and YouTube called Hablemos de Real Estate. God bless you all, and have an amazing day. See you guys next week.